Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show, where last night Clayton and I were struggling for an additional topic for the podcast, and Pep Guardiola decided to go all Leonardo DiCaprio and Wolf of Wall Street and say, "I'm not leaving." Alec Clayton, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I like that. Yeah, very well done. I don't know if that was rehearsed or off the cuff, but
No,
very good, very good.
I don't rehearse, mate. My name's James. The rest of you probably know that already. We are going to talk Pep in a second. Also, going to be talking some England today as well. We're going to have a look at what we'd maybe do if we were on Wildcard at the moment. Clayton wasn't happy about it. He was like, "I did that 2 weeks ago, James. Don't make me think about it again." But I know a lot that you are on wild cards at the moment. We did say off the People's Poll we'd cover that today. Euro focus this week is on Bodo Glimt from Norway. And we're going to finish with a derby comeback from on this day in 2010. But we will start with last night's breaking news on Pep Guardiola. Sam Lee of The Athletic reporting that there's likely to be a 1 year extension signed with an option for an additional year. I presume that's therefore a 2 year extension for Pep Guardiola. And I guess many at the top of the table just went, bollocks.
Yeah,
Was that
basically.
your reaction,
Yeah,
please?
exactly that. To be honest, I was quite surprised. I think given the uncertainty around the kind of court cases and the charges and stuff, as well as like not, it always pisses me off when people do this, but I'm about to do the thing that pisses me off. Body language reading and stuff. Like, I think there's so many people out there that claim to be experts on body language and they're not, and I'm about to do that. He seems like he comes across a little bit burnt out and like mentally fatigued and a bit ratty in
He's
interviews
always a
at the
bit
minute.
like that, though, isn't he? Like if his mood takes him to be ratty, he will be ratty, won't he?
I guess so, but yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's gone up a gear at the minute. So I was quite surprised when I saw that last night. I think given the uncertainty of yeah, everything I just mentioned, as well as how he comes across to me this season, I thought he was looking towards, yeah, kind of seeing out his contract, taking a little break. But yeah, as you say, it's 1 year with a potential extension, 2 years. My immediate thought was, does that tie in with the kind of Tuchel contract length and England?
Well,
Maybe
if it's 2 years, no, right? Because that would
wasn't
take him to 2027, wouldn't it?
wasn't Tuchel's 18 months?
Yeah, so Tuchel will be to 2026. Guardiola's contract due to expire in the summer of 2025, right? So if it ends up being 2 years more, it's 2027, isn't it?
Yeah, but like the kind of option is there, isn't it? So I wonder if it would be a case of kind of do the year, kind of assess how Tuchel's getting on with England, and then
How do
trigger
you
it.
assess it? Tuchel ultimately will be decided in the middle of the summer, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
true.
see Guardiola just going, and unless it's kind of predetermined beforehand that Guardiola would take over from him after the World Cup. I can't see it being, let's see how England get on the World Cup before I decide if I'm doing the next football season. See him
Yeah, no,
start
you're right.
pre-season training for the World Cup finished, mate.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I don't know. I do reckon there is a link there somewhere. I
I
believe they
definitely think England
probably.
want him.
Yeah, and like he didn't he come and outright say like no, they didn't contact me. I call bullshit on that. I reckon they did it.
I'm the same, yeah.
Yeah. So
We're not open here for libel, it's just an opinion.
what's your opinion on the extension? Did it surprise you?
Uh, yes and no. The more I thought about it last night, the more I thought the timing was quite interesting in the sense that they're obviously in a bad moment. And I think they sense that they're in a bad moment. And if you've got the leader pulling in saying, nah, I'm not fucking leaving, then that's a big positive for them. I'm going to be at the Etihad Saturday and I'm now thinking, thanks, great, just what I needed.
Do you think things
Lift
like
the
that
whole
have an
mood.
impact then?
Well, I think you've got one of the best managers of all time is potentially leaving at the end of the season of a team that's dominated, obviously, for the last, might as well call it decade now at this stage. If you've got that uncertainty, and they've clearly got issues at the moment in terms of how they're playing, and have lost 4 games in a row, right? That shouldn't happen to City under whatever circumstances. Then there's doubt there. Players think, is he going to be here next year? You got all this court stuff in the background, as you mentioned. The manager coming out saying, nah, do you know what? We're not finished yet. There's more to do. I'll be here next year and probably the year after. I think we'll give everybody a lift. Surely the football supporters would have a lift. They
Yeah,
must do.
yeah, I think the way you frame that's nice as well. It just removes all that uncertainty and then it probably goes into a sense of confidence and an uplifting atmosphere and mood coming into the weekend. So, but yeah, as an Arsenal fan, I was annoyed.
Are you genuinely? Would you genuinely sit there thinking, "I hope this is the last year"?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you say he's one of the best ever. I agree with that. I think he's the best in the world right now. And yeah, of course, I think Arsenal's likelihood of winning the title would increase if he left. So yeah, I.
You probably thought that about Jurgen Klopp as well, didn't you? And they ain't doing bad.
True, true. Yeah, I did think that about Jurgen Klopp going. I didn't think Liverpool would be up
There's
there
like
this year.
well, we did have that assumption with Liverpool, didn't we? A lot of us did think we'll probably have a dip this year, and do you know what? They still might.
Yeah,
By the
no,
way, I referenced obviously Tottenham last year being on 26 points from 10, right? They're on 28 from 11, I think 28 from
think
11,
so.
right?
Yeah,
So no one thinks Liverpool are not going to qualify for the Champions League, but there's a lot of tough fixtures still to come for Liverpool. But I think most of us did think they'd have a dip. There's
yeah,
nothing to say that somebody else wouldn't come in for Guardiola and just continue.
yeah. That's really true. Yeah, and you never know. As much as he is the best in the world, sometimes you get too familiar with the group and processes and stuff. Sometimes you do need a change and an exit. And even if it is getting rid of the best manager in the world, there is a weird scenario where that kind of reset could benefit. But yeah, I think that is a very low probability
Do
thing.
you take into anything into the Ruben Amorim announcement here? Because they obviously appointed Hugo Viana to take over as like their sporting director, and he'd worked with Amorim previously, and there was large kind of rumours, right? Well, Amorim is going to be set up to take over from Guardiola. It's something we discussed with Johnny Pringle a couple of months ago, saying yeah, it looks like that's probably what it's going to be. Amorim rocks up at their biggest rivals down the road, so maybe City looking at it now and going, well, the door's not open for what's next. Guardiola's always said like, I won't leave them in a shit unless they lied to me. Um, so maybe there's that. They've gone to him now and gone, well, the guy we thought has gone down the road. We need some more time. Can you stay on?
Possibly.
I mean, the external pressure on that's probably quite interesting because I'm sure City would be quite happy if Guardiola obviously never left, basically.
Yeah, but yeah, he's not going to stay forever, is he? Yeah, I hadn't really thought that. I take it you think that's a possibility then?
Well, maybe, but then I also think from Amrim's perspective, if those talks had been going on where it's like, look, you're likely to take over from Pep Guardiola, and considering he came out himself and said, I wanted to finish the season with Sporting Lisbon, you would imagine he would have.
Yeah.
Or he's been given the vibe to say, actually, Guardiola's going to stay. You might as well go and take the job down the road and
Yeah,
compete
I think
against
so.
him.
Yeah, because like now that he's gone there, I think it's very unlikely that he'll ever kind of switch across the
What,
city.
go from United to City? That'd be
Yeah.
hilarious. No, I don't. That would be quite something. Amrim steers United back to Champions League place, and then at the end of the season goes, "Yeah, actually, I'm going to City."
Goes and beats him in the
Um,
Champions League final with City.
wow, that would be quite something. I mean, that doesn't happen with managers, does it?
No,
Really?
no, it doesn't.
We've had
Trying to think.
players like he who shall not be named and
What's his
stuff like
name? I don't know
that,
who you're talking about.
and even Tevez United contracts running out and then going to City and stuff.
Van
But a
Persie,
manager
Arsenal to
just, I'm just
United.
trying to visualize it. The manager at Liverpool just letting his contract run out, and then oh yeah, I'm off, and then rocks up at City. Like,
No, can't imagine that.
no, I guess these days as well, as kind of spoken about with Thomas Tuchel last week. Probably stuff inserted in contracts. If you leave a certain amount of money, if you go somewhere else, etc., etc. It's good news for City anyway, particularly ahead of some challenging fixtures obviously coming up. Big week for them, Tottenham final, and then Liverpool in game week 13 for them. I mentioned Tommy Tuchel. I guess he's the England manager now.
Wow, it was
I suppose he
League.
is, isn't he? Otherwise, England don't have one.
Uh, I don't. No, I don't
What,
think he is.
what
Is
is
he?
Lee
Doesn't it?
Carsley going to do over the next 6 weeks?
I don't know. Yeah, I
Well, he's
wonder
not going
what
to do anything,
happens.
is he? He's going to do the under 21. So technically, I guess England don't have a manager at the moment.
Yeah, so what happened? Like, I always wonder in
Nothing
between.
happens. We don't play till like March, mate.
No,
Don't
but
worry about
like,
it.
but what do you think England managers do in those periods in between? So they're usually going to games and stuff, right? So what would an England manager be doing in this limbo period now? Because Tuchel
I,
doesn't
I
contractually start until the new year, does he?
no, but he may well be wanting to. It depends, I guess, how he is as a human, right? He might be like, I ain't watching football till January, and I'll just start then. I suspect he's probably watching a lot of Premier League games and getting himself a kind of an idea. I'm sure he's probably watched England's games over the last week or so, which you did not, Clayton.
I did not. No, do I need to explain myself? I'm like, I just
Yes,
can't be asked.
explain yourself.
I mean, I've never been so checked out and disengaged from international football in my life. I have defined myself now as a fair weather international fan. You will see me once a month every summer. Apart from that, no chance. I got offered a very discounted ticket for the Ireland game. Didn't go. Um, wait. Didn't you get offered a free ticket in the last break? You
Yeah.
didn't go.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, on the day of the game, it's worth saying. I was on duty to pick my son up from school that day.
okay,
I was
fair.
offered a free ticket in the pissing rain against, I think it was a Finland game,
I
I
can't
think, at
remember.
home. And
Yeah.
I was like, the person who offered to me, I won't grass up. But I said to them, you'll need to pay me.
Yeah, no,
No, I'm not going to Wembley for a Nations League game in the pissing rain. No.
no, to be fair, I do like the experience of physically going to games, but yeah, I did it. The way I looked at it is like that is 180 minutes of my life that I can use on other things over the last week. So, didn't watch the games, saw the results. A couple of my mates were actually out in Athens. A lot of my mates went to Wembley.
Have they give you any detail about getting in the ground? Because
I've
apparently it was
not actually
trouble again.
asked him. I saw a lot of complaints on social media about that. I'm seeing him next week, so yeah, maybe I'll check in on a couple of episodes time to give the update on that. But yeah, I saw a lot of complaining on social media. But what's the verdict you've seen on it?
No, I mean, just did a little piece which included that on a security and football podcast last Friday on Patreon, but it was the day after, and it was all the accounts the night before was same shit, like trouble getting in the ground, tear gas being set off against the England fans for no reason other than just trying to get in a football stadium. Basically, we're not painting us as angels, but I'm just saying there is a bit of targeting going on, not just for England fans, but I said this away fans in Europe and stuff. It's like I almost feel like sometimes they want it to go off.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's the vibe I get.
Anyway,
Go on,
I'll
talk
talk
to me
about
about the
England
games.
then because you didn't watch the game. So my dad said to me on Saturday, he said, "Oh, England were good Thursday night." I was like, hang on a minute. I have a word here. Because we won 3-0 and the result's quite impressive, actually, considering they'd beat us a couple of weeks ago or a month earlier. And they're not bad. They're much improved from anything I've seen over them it's probably the strongest they've been, I guess, probably since Euro 2004 or maybe sort of around about Euro 2008. Got some handy little players, actually. And before the second goal, it was on the ropes for 15, 20 minutes, Clayton. It's like everyone's forgotten about it under real pressure. Um, and then we scored the second goal, which was obviously fortuitous, and then a lovely third goal. We played quite well in the first half. We started well. We deserved to be ahead. Much improved from what we'd obviously seen when we played them before. We had a structure again,
So I
more
was
of
just
a
gonna
more of a four
ask.
two three one. And
I did watch the previous England-Greece game, and Greece were just cutting through England. So, like, was there any changes to the system in this game versus that one, or like you say, there was a
well, I
bit more of
mean,
a
Cole
structure
Palmer
there?
basically played central midfield when we played Greece at home. So this was obviously very different. With the one thing Curtis Jones and Conor Gallagher obviously do have in terms of a pairing, neither are kind of a real anchor player, but neither's really a 10. I think Jones is adapting where he might become one. But in terms of complementing each other, it's actually not a bad partnership. I don't think it's not top level stuff, but they've both got great energy and legs in them as well. And that was important. In fact, Jones has got to a point where I thought he was fatigued, get him off the pitch. And he's ended up like running a length for the pitch to score this beautiful goal for the third goal himself, which is thoroughly deserved. And I'm really pleased for him actually.
He's a nice player. I like him.
Yeah, I think he's really adaptable, and I think that makes him great for international football, and particularly actually even further down the line, tournament football. In the sense he could be on the team sheet, and is he left eight? Is he right eight? Is he deeper? Is he a 10? You can do things with him more than most players. I think he's very adaptable, and I think that's a great strength in
I
modern
think he's
football.
got that nice blend of like he's got incredible technique, but he's got that kind of power and engine about him as well. I think that's a really nice blend to have.
He's a very deceptively a good ball carrier.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult to get the ball off of, even though he can come across a bit gangly. He's
I
not
know
like
what you mean.
tall, but he's not like built. Do you know what I mean? He's not got a frame. Yeah, difficult player to shrug off the ball. Good player. And that's nice because, again, think back to conversations we had at the start of the year again. The central midfield looks like such a problem. You got Angel Gomez has been involved now. Kobe Minor's obviously development as well. Suddenly that area of the pitch is just beginning to look a lot better. And there's actually options there rather than going, well, can we shoehorn Jude back in with Declan Rice so we can get all these players in the team? I think that was the biggest positive of the week for me was the improvement of Jude.
Okay.
After the last internationals, I said we've got to be careful here that this isn't like a Dele Alli thing, for example, where he's hit the heights so hard and fast. Is he now just a moments player? I think in a weird way, the fact that there was no Foden, there was no Palmer, no Saka, just graphs like it's on me, isn't it?
Yeah, and it seems like he thrives off that. Who else?
Who else? Yeah, and his involvement was so much better. The balance of Gordon left and Madueke right is probably not the ideal that people want in their dream England scenario, but you had two players on the flanks who you don't want to leave yourself isolated 1v1 against. Not at all. Madueke is a player who strikes me that I think he has something in him that it could just take him to a level, but I don't know if it will ever come out.
What do you think that is?
Just I look at him when he's carrying with the ball sometimes. I mean, you're gonna destroy people. Like he'd be the sort of one if he's running against my team. I'm worried. Like you could really do me. He's got beautiful left foot if he comes inside as well, and he's got that kind of raw pace, and he's got the power to go with it as well. I don't know, just a little something missing. But again, he's kind of had this meteoric rise as well, where 2 years ago people wouldn't have heard of him. He's playing in the Eredivisie. Now he's first choice player at Chelsea. I just think there's a level in him that could really make him an elite player. Is kind of what I'm saying. I don't know if we'll be able to unlock it.
Okay.
I always feel like there's something holding him back slightly, and he could be the sort of player that would just destroy a team. That's how I feel about
If you
him.
had to put your finger on what thing is that is slightly holding him back, what would you say it is?
Might be it could even be experience.
Sure.
Might be one where it unlocks where there's elements of Bale in him a little bit. And that's a kind of
I
a
mean, that's a hell of a compliment.
rogue comparison. But do you know what I mean? Like suddenly it just happened for Gareth, and you were like, he'd destroy anyone.
Yeah, everything just clicks into place.
There's a little bit of that in him.
Interesting. All right.
Gordon did well. I think credit to Cole Walker for playing second half in Greece at centre back and then the game in Ireland. It did fine. The fullback positions were a big plus. Much better once Lewis Hall came on at half time against Greece. Same concerns I always have for Rico Lewis, incredible talent, etc., etc. But I think you need the right structure around that. And clearly, this was a weakened England team.
So did Hall, that was a halftime change, was it?
Came on at half time, so he'd moved Rico Lewis to right back. Yeah, that left side just felt so much more comfortable with Lewis Hall there, actually. It's been such a bug problem position for ages. You'll hear Simon Bibby talk about it on Clash of Correspondents tomorrow as well, about him saying in the summer, he'll get in the England squad. And that with Shaw's injuries, whatever's happening with Ben Chilwell, etc., to have a natural left-footed left back doesn't mean we can't play a Rico Lewis at left back, but to have an actual left back and play left back, that's a bonus because we've
Yep.
not had that for as seen in the summer. We've not really had that for a while.
It
I
just
thought
improves the relationships everywhere on that
yeah,
left-hand side, doesn't it?
Tino Livramento acquitted himself really well. Mark Gay is kind of faultless. We
You want
discussed
him
him.
at Tottenham, don't you?
We discussed him a bit on a Patreon pod last week. Yeah, but I only want him under certain
Yeah.
circumstances, and we'd need money to make it happen. But he just goes about his business unfussed. He gets
Yeah, Mr.
unflustered
7 out of 10, very consistent
every game.
every game. I always said that about Bakary Sagna at Arsenal, just
Yeah,
Mr. Consistent.
really good. And I think there was a potential big headline last week, which won't get followed up on. But obviously, Harry Kane didn't start in grace.
Okay.
And if we'd lost, I think that would have been a big headline. Now, what really obviously helped Lee Carsley was, well, Ollie Watkins scored straight away, basically. So it was like, oh, okay, manager's got it right. And no one wants to follow up on that. So even if maybe Greece had gone on and won, you'd gone, well, he started Watkins and Watkins was there and scored the goal. The problem exists, as I've always said with Kane, it's a little bit like a Haaland problem sometimes with City, is if England do want to press from the front, you are better off with a centre forward like Ollie Watkins. It's a reality. And I saw bits of criticism of Kane, particularly against Ireland. It was a narrative during the game. Yeah, he's dropping too deep. He's dropping too deep. Have you seen his pass for Jude Bellingham?
I haven't, no.
Mate, staggering.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's probably pass of the season so
go
far.
on,
It's it's
describe
it's,
it.
it's a joke. The, we get a turnover on the far touchline. Bear in mind, this is early in the second half. We've been pretty shit. Ireland have done really well, kind of low block, made life difficult.
It
We
was nil
barely had a
nil until
shot.
the red, wasn't it? Or was it one
Yeah,
nil?
yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
nil nil.
There's a turnover on the far left touchline, kind of, I don't know, sort of 10 yards into Ireland's half or so. And Kane goes out there to get it because he's dropping deep. Don't drop deep, Harry. And what you obviously need if Harry drops short, this is part of the deal. You need people to run beyond.
Oh, that's exactly what
This is
Jude
why
is, isn't
part
it?
of the argument with Kane and the Sun was get Andy Gordon in. Someone who could actually just wants to run the line. So if Kane drops out, you need one of the tens to fill it. And one big difference between a Jude, I think Cole Palmer is progressing at it, but Phil Foden, Jude would be happy to go and almost take over as your nine. So Jude makes his run in behind. Kane's got to play this pass from the left touchline. And the only way a normal human would play this pass is like a cross from deep, like so it's a big kind of a diag, right? Into the penalty area. He drills this thing like a shot, like a daisy cutter with kind of swads on it. So it comes back. And Jude don't even break stride. It's into him and meets at the same
That is
time.
unreal.
There's an angle from the other side which would be kind of like your offside line, if you will. Yeah, probably they'd use for the VAR and stuff. And the gap he has to play this pass, he can only play it like it's a shot.
Yeah,
It's
it's the
outrageous.
technique of professional footballers blows my fucking mind, honestly.
Um, and then everybody goes, oh, so that's why sometimes Harry Kane drops deep. Well, yeah, if you've got a runner like Jude beyond and stuff, so the relationship between Kane and Jude in that moment, it would encapsulate why ultimately that's probably still the two.
Yeah.
The moments that separate you from it's 0-0, we're struggling. You just have a moment. And Liam Scales brings Bellingham down for the penalty. He's already been burnt. So Kane's outrageous pass has just changed the game. And Bellingham's run. Suddenly it says penalty, red card, banged, and then we just ripped them apart because
Yeah.
5-0 could have been more. They went, unfortunately. And Ireland had done pretty well up to that point.
If it stayed 11v11, I appreciate this is a
Yeah,
tough
yeah, we'd
question.
have won, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, not like that.
sure.
No way at all. Because they were making life very, very difficult. But it did remind me of a lot of games I've watched with Tottenham sometimes, where it's like the longer this goes on, you're going to get too much fatigued and there's too much quality in the opposition. To win the two games across the week, 8-0, in some challenging circumstances, with the amount of players we had missing, was obviously very good.
Yeah.
So a positive week. It does mean that England are now seeded for the World Cup qualifiers. By the way, we were always, as I told you last week, always going to be seeded. Do you want to know, Clayton, for the record, the teams that we were avoiding World Cup qualifying?
Yeah, go for it.
So it's 12 groups.
What would you have done if I said no? Would you would you have just not said
I'd have told you anyway,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was ready to do so. So England cannot meet in the qualifiers. France, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, Germany, Croatia, Switzerland, Denmark, Austria. The teams in pot two for reference are Ukraine, Turkey, Sweden, Wales, Poland, Hungary, Serbia, Greece, Romania, Norway, Slovakia, and Czechia.
So Super Tommy Tickle's gonna get a Gareth Southgate-esque run, is he?
As I told you last week, if England don't qualify, you're drunk.
Yeah.
By virtue of winning the Nations League group as well, one benefit it does have is it pretty much guarantees us, at worst case, a playoff place, i.e. in the unthinkable circumstance where, I don't know, England did get a group. I'm trying to look at what would be the kind of hardest, I don't know, Sweden and Slovenia, something like that, maybe.
Sure.
Poland and Slovenia, and England did finish third, we'd still have a playoff, basically, almost certainly. So, yeah, again, England have to be pissed to qualify. One other side that could remarkably get themselves a playoff place is San Marino.
I've seen this, yeah. They're doing bits since they got their first win. Was it this calendar year? Was it this year we covered it?
It was first in like 23 years or something. Was it first competitive victory? I mean,
Yeah.
first victory for 23
Yeah, I
years.
just couldn't remember if it was in
Something
2024
outrageous.
or 2023. But yeah, they're
Um,
doing bits, aren't they?
I mean, for all the criticism of Nations League, you have to acknowledge this aspect of it is really nice.
Yeah.
They've scored 3 goals in a game for the first time. They've won the first away game ever.
Who did
They
they beat?
won. They won in Liechtenstein 3-1.
Liechtenstein.
From behind as well, I think. They've won their Nations League group. San Marino have been promoted. Have a word.
You're right though. Like this is why I think, yeah, as much as us as England fans aren't keen on it, like for other nations, it's absolutely brilliant for what it can do for them.
It would take an incredible chain of events, by the way, for them to get a playoff to qualify for the World Cup. Imagine San Marino being 2 games and qualifying for the World Cup. And whoever they played in that playoff, I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, to ruin the story, they would get beat. But this is where the Nations League does work at the bottom end of this spectrum. That's nice. Everybody knows this is a feel good story. And I accept that. And I think that follows up on conversations we'd had previously when they beat Liechtenstein the first time. So 7 points from their 4 games. Drew and
Nicely
lost to
done.
Gibraltar, but finished above them.
Fair play. I'm quite excited for. I know this is random for Tuchel's England. Like it was just something you said there that sparked it in my head, like about a balanced team, and I think there's uncomfortable conversations to be had about certain players that aren't in England's most balanced team, but they would be in their most talented, but in their most balanced, I'm not sure. And I think Tuchel is a manager that won't shy away from making those decisions. So I'm quite excited to see what he does and what system he implements when he takes over.
Yes, be intriguing. It's new. As much as we kind of criticize our interest in it, yeah, when them games come round and there is first games in charge, yeah, we're going to have an interest in what this
I'll
is going to
definitely
look
watch
like.
them. I'll 100% watch them, yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to wildcard discussion, Clayton. So
Oh dear.
we said we'd cover this. I know there's a number on wildcard drafts now for wildcard 12. I think people have been feeling those who are on it feeling the pinch a little bit of get on with it now. Can I just activate this shit before I overthink it? So I thought it'd be useful for us to cover what we'd probably do. So who wants to go first?
I'll start just
Go on
because
then. Just so I
yes,
can
I
abuse it, basically.
basically, yeah, let's just get this shit out of the way. So I think the place to start is I wildcarded 2 weeks ago, and when you set me the task of put together a wildcard 12 draft, I fucking got 10 changes.
This is why I wanted you to do it now rather than in 10. I recognize you've
So
had some very good weeks. For context, by the way, I'd only be making 5 changes, I
yeah, so
think. You're looking
that
at 10 and
I'm
you've
looking
just
at
wildcarded 2 weeks ago.
so yeah, I had a very good 2 weeks, but I am a bit like, what was the upside of those 2 good weeks when I'm looking at making 10 changes if I was on wildcard? But a couple of kind of big things to look at. So there's no Bukayo Saka there. I've gone for triple Arsenal defense. Take this potentially with a pinch of salt, but there is a high profile Arsenal like ITK that he tweeted something very cryptic about Raheem Sterling, and there's a few murmurs that I'm not to timestamp this, it's Wednesday the 20th. I'm not 100% sure Saka's actually going to make it for Forest, so I was kind of um, incorporating that in my thinking, which led to the triple Arsenal defense. Uh, I've heard what you said before about not wanting to cut yourself off to Havertz and stuff, but I was like, do you know what? I think the time is now for the Arsenal triple defense. I know it sounds a bit bonkers because we've not looked the most solid defensively so far, but I think there's circumstances that explains that. Calafiori is that, so let me for the audio listeners, let me read what I've gone for the 15. So the starting 11, if it was this week, is David Raya in goal, Calafiori in there with Gabriel, Dallo and Digne, Captain Salah, Vice Captain Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, Morgan Rogers, and Madueke. I've got Isaac in there up top. James is like semi-smirking. On the bench, I've got
Just
Fabian.
thinking that doesn't look like Gareth Bale at this moment. Seeing him there.
On the bench, I've got Fabianski, Cunha, Hall, and João Pedro.
João Pedro, last sub.
Yeah, like I mean, I didn't really.
All on the bench at home to West Ham. Were you trying to
Yeah,
wild card or bench boost, mate?
who would you play him instead of?
I
Dallo,
wouldn't be benching.
Ipswich.
I know I speak very highly of Fulham at the moment. I would not be benching Matthias Cunha. I don't think.
But again,
I'd play Cunha over Rogers.
would you
Yeah,
away to Fulham? I can see Fulham keeping a clean sheet in that.
yeah, but Cunha is more likely to score goals than Rogers. Is a reality.
I disagree. In a general statement, I agree. I disagree on this week. I don't think Palace look great at the minute, and yeah, I think Fulham
Eze
looked
might be back. Is the word this morning.
interesting.
I'd
But yeah,
play. I
that's the
think I'd play
15.
Hall over
Dallo
Dallo or
maybe.
Dean. If you listen to Clash of Correspondents tomorrow, I think you'll want to play Lewis Hall. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, what do you think? Like forgetting the kind of individual benching dilemmas, what do you think of the 15 I've gone with?
Um, Structure's okay. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's obviously just one of the Wish Jays, which is fine. But all I'd say is because Isak's fixtures are pretty good for a while. If you ever do deem you want Jackson, that might be quite tough. But I do look at things like you got an additional coverage of Chelsea. You could
That's what
downgrade
yeah.
Madueke to Semenyo or lower, and then you can get Cunha up to Jackson. Cunha, Pedro, and Isak will all be really tough sells. Psychological here. As long as Pedro gets in the team and does well, those three falls are pretty set for you. So in that essence, I quite like it. It would be awkward for you if you deem you want a different forward at any point. That's only one way of thinking
Yeah.
about it. The Madueke shout is interesting, Clay. There's a real surprising one.
Yeah, just I was browsing in the Chelsea Slack channel on Patreon and can't remember the specific comments, but like they seem quite high on him and in there and especially on his minutes, like we kind of said, like he's literally their kind of first choice. And part of it is like I'm not actually going to wildcard, right? So I was like, if I was, I think I'm someone I like to have fun with this game. I think there's such a drive of like the optimal team and this and that nowadays. And I've always been someone that likes to throw in a couple of wildcard players. So that's Calafiori and Madueke on this wildcard. I just think he's not nailed, but he's a regular starter for them. I rate him highly. I'm not sure what his data's like, to be honest. I've not really looked at that, but with the fixtures, I couldn't really find a way to get Jackson in a draft that I liked. So I was like, I fancy a double up on Chelsea offensive coverage. I could have been Neto, but I don't know if Sancho will get the odd minutes here and there away from him. So went
Well,
Madueke.
part of the point, could that be Sancho left and Neto right? Would be a concern.
Yeah, possibly. Again, this is very much like a that's the punt of the team. I'm
I
not
mean,
saying that's
against yourselves, I would have taken Neto off rather than Madueke, but he took Madueke off, didn't he?
yeah,
And put Neto to that side, and then Neto's gone there and scored.
yeah,
So
true.
punty, I don't mind it as a punt. It's fine. It's the sort of one that, yeah, has got a ceiling. I guess the one people want to know most is why Calafiori over Timber or Saliba?
I just vibes. Yeah, I think he's fun. So no,
People would have been waiting on tenterhooks for this reliable answer. Clayton's going to drop us bombs that we didn't know about Arsenal defensive. That's
no,
just
that
that's just for vibes, kids.
it's
It's over a reason.
so Ben White's had I can't remember if it was he's had an operation. I can't remember if it was groin or something, but he's out for I've seen timelines of like 6 to 10 weeks. So in the fullback areas, I don't know what the status is on Tomiyasu, but there's Timber, Calafiori, who is supposedly back um for this week against Forest. Zinchenko there, Kivior, but like I
Tomiyasu.
yeah, I just said him, but I'm not
Oh,
sure
sorry.
what his timeline return is. Um, yeah, I just think when Calafiori has played so far this season, Timber has been right back, and Calafiori just has this license to roam where Timber is very effective when more on the right when he's in the final third, and he kind of gets into those offensive half spaces, but he's more of like a facilitator. He kind of passes it, moves it, and Calafiori just drives. And I think you'll see him enter the penalty box quite a bit. So he's my yeah, the wild card defensive punt where I think I've said it since the start of the season. I think he'll lock down Arsenal's left back spot. I think that, of course, there'll be the odd game where Zinchenko gets a run out or Kivior possibly, like less likely. But especially with Ben White being out, uh, Timber's minutes probably are more secure than Calafiori's, to be honest, because he can cover both sides. But I just think Calafiori has a higher upside than Timber.
Okay.
But I've gone for a strong bench as well, so I
So
was like,
basically, it's the most dangerous pick of him, Saliba, and Timber, is what you're telling us.
yes,
Okay. Fine. I mean, look, the one thing I'd say is with what you've done here in terms of your setup, like if you didn't make it for the weekend, like your cover's good.
exactly,
So
yeah.
if you're looking at it as a longer term play, the reason not to go treble Arsenal defense is not the fear of, oh, what if they concede a goal? Well, yeah, it's knackered, isn't it? But I mean, if you take it from my perspective, if I was on treble Arsenal and I've got the points, great. And if they concede, I'm celebrating anyway. So subject to the they were 4-0 up and you let a goal in, now you're dickheads, aren't you? You can't have Saka. That's it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I said, I'm working on the assumption that he might miss a week or two based on the Twitter people I've seen. So again, take that with a pinch of salt. If Saka was fit and available, I'd find a way to probably just go Raya, Gabriel, and find a way to get Saka in this wildcard draft.
Okay, so few alternatives to what I've got here. So I'll read mine out. It's Raya Fabianski is the keepers as well. Gabriel wins double Arsenal defense. Some of my picks I've got value in, so I wasn't fast, bothered about changing them up. So I got eight Norrie in at 4.4, so don't feel like the right time to move that on. I can use it as a rotator. Similar, Wout Fast got in at 4.0. I would want a 4.0 defender that's playing every week. I don't really want to spend more than that on a kind of a fifth defender. Alternatives to you, Joachim Anderson, 4.3.
Really like him.
He's on. They've got tough fixtures after this week, right? The four games afterwards are really tough actually for Fulham, but he's possibly in my head a little bit because one move for me that would enable me maybe to go Bumo to Saka in 14 really needs me to be buying a defender that's 4.3 or lower. And when I look at that group, it's either Anderson or it's just go and get another 4.0. It's that.
Okay. Yeah, so you'd rather have him then.
I like with Anderson as well that Fulham's fixtures get good when Wolves' get tough. So if I'm sitting there with eight Norrie and Anderson, that can change further on. And I've put Levi Colwell in as a Chelsea defensive choice. Fixtures really good for the long term. Clearly first choice of all their defenders at the moment. Yes, he's on 3 yellow cards, so he could miss a game at some point. But yeah, Levi Colwell, I think, would be the choice. Midfield similarities, obviously, Salah Palmer chew-ins here, I think. I got Saka in. I'd leave Bumo for the next two.
You spoke last week about possibly selling him in a few weeks' time. I
14.
forgot, was it 14?
Yeah, there's a number of players potentially on mine for around about that period of moving him on. Jared Bowen is one. I think Mohamed Kudus is back from suspension the same week. Diogo Jota, we think, is going to be back around about then. And you'll hear a little bit on Clash of Correspondents tomorrow as well, bigging up the potential for Anthony Gordon as well, actually, who are all in around. None of them look great at the moment, but if you fast forward a bit, one of them might in a few weeks. So it's almost like I want to keep someone at his value. None of them are better than Boom over the next two. I've got value held in him. Let's wait. Also, we might sit here this time next week, and I think I'm going to captain him against Leicester. So I'd rather leave that on the table at the
Yeah,
moment.
makes sense.
Fifth midfielder, similar Rogers, ball at 5. No reason to piss about with that. Forwards won't surprise anyone to see Isak. João Pedro is in, and I would still go Nicholas Jackson at the moment.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I like him. Really like him.
Um,
I just
Pain
realized you.
points here. Go
No,
on.
sorry, go on. No, it's very pedantic that you got two more expected points on Pete's site than I do. That annoys me.
Yeah, for those on YouTube, these images are obviously taken from FPL team. Well, they were once Clayton realised how to scroll on his phone. Well done, Clayton. So there we go. It's definitive. According to Pete's site, my team is better than yours. And there's nothing you can do about it. Um, Getting to Watkins would be tough, and it's something I want to potentially leave open. But it could be that it's right, hit 14, and it's Bumo down to sort of the Semenyo range, and then you can put Watkins in for Jackson for a couple. I mean, if Jackson got suspended for game week 14, for example, it'd be like, okay, I really want to make that move for a couple of games, even with switching it back. So I feel like the flexibility in there is okay. I think there's a general consensus at the moment not to spend the money on a defense. It's just not worthwhile at the moment. But one caveat to that is kind of along the lines you've gone down with the treble Arsenal defense. If you can find the points there with clean sheets, it will be a difference maker when so many others are heading towards a path of the looking a little bit more like a template at the moment. And it's not impossible that I end up with treble Arsenal in my main team anyway this week as well. Because subject to Trent's availability, and I'm guessing he's going to be out at this stage. I obviously just need to shove a little bit of money to go Solanke to Isak. So it's any defender on the table for me. Now, one option, like I said, is probably Anderson, so I can make that Bumo to Saka move. But obviously, if I go treble Arsenal, I'll cut myself off for Saka
So
anyway.
So what, you've got Raya and Gabriel at the minute?
Yeah,
Ah, okay. Who
I
would
would I
who
would
would
go
you add?
Saliba
Sure. Yeah, understood.
just on the security. I wouldn't want to piss about with it. Actually,
Yeah,
I don't
makes
think.
sense.
Um, Also, I would need it this week.
Sure.
So you, unless is Mikel Arteta going to tell me that Calafiori is going to start on Saturday? I don't think he is. So for me, it would be just down the kind of Dullard Saliba route. But from there, then it just becomes right. Well, those three play every week, irrespective. And there'll be some games where they keep clean sheets, and there'll be some games where they're all 1 and 2 pointers, and you know it.
Yeah,
But you're
and
making the longer term, and when they obviously do keep a clean sheet, chance you're probably going to fly.
yeah, and just to add to that, like on the kind of going down, you describe it as dullard, but it's sensible. Like especially with the December fixtures, there's going to be games every 3 days and stuff. Like where I've spoken about Calafiori, like he is going to miss a game in that period. Zinchenko will get a game here and there. Timber will not play. Tomiyasu might be back, so the fullback areas will see rotation. It's just I like vibes.
Yeah, if I make that move to go treble Arsenal, which I would say is more unlikely than likely for clarity at the moment, purely because I don't really want to cut myself off of Saka and Havertz, or maybe even Odegaard, which won't feel like an option at the moment, but might do in a little bit, maybe. I feel like the way I've played the game this year, leaving my options open, has worked quite well. I realize I cut this off, but ultimately, that's the one. If you're saying, right, we'll put a defender in this week that's going to help you through December, I'm Saliba.
Yeah.
And I think my take would be, right, Porro to Colwell in forthcoming weeks. And then I just go, right, that's probably it. Treble Arsenal, one Chelsea. Here we go. For a long period. Once that's in place, that does tempt me that.
Yeah, no, I can
But then it's
understand that.
more, it's also then more money defensively than others will be putting in. But then if I'm not trying to force in a Saka, it also doesn't matter so much.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different routes to points, isn't there? Just a question on the kind of Jackson to Watkins. So let's just say Jackson doesn't get his yellow. And let's just say he scored against Leicester, Villa, Southampton. Like he's on a run and you've got no other fires. Do you think you'd still make that move? I forgot what the facilitator was to make that happen. It was Bumo down to
Probably
Semenyo,
be
maybe?
Bumo, yeah, something like that. It's probably dependent on Watkins a little bit specifically. We spoke about this on a People's Poll yesterday about Watkins having those home games against Brentford and Southampton 14-15. That's all I'd want him for. Is those two. In the case of 15, Jackson goes to Tottenham. Yes, I know he'll have chances, but on paper, it's obviously a tough fixture. Watkins at home to Southampton. If he's had a rest against Brentford a few days before, I think Watkins goes into that game because the best captaincy. And it could just be get him, captain him, sell him.
Fair. Yeah, I don't know. I just look at Jackson's stretch of well up till game week 18. I'm not sure it's worth the hokey cokey personally.
It's probably not. But if I'm sitting there at 10:50 a.m. on the Saturday of game week 15 and FPL Tom Cobley has told me that Mohamed Salah is not starting at Everton,
Who's that?
it's made up. Babes.
Oh,
Then I might have an issue. I'm like, who am I captaining this week? Because the game week 15 captaincy doesn't look great.
no, I
Arsenal go
think
to Fulham, Chelsea go to Tottenham. It's not great
it
for
probably would be
alternatives.
Salah for me, Everton away, but yeah, even
But that's what I'm
that could be
saying.
low
It's the early
scoring.
kickoff. If you heard he wasn't playing,
Yeah,
you're captaining someone else, aren't you?
yep, fair point. Yeah, good to be aware of that, to be fair.
I also think, by the way, if João Pedro scores this weekend, I think there might be a bit of a surge to captain him next week.
To captain,
Yeah.
who have they got? Oh, Southampton.
Yeah, because again, the fixtures next week, Liverpool City playing each other, Tottenham at home to Fulham doesn't stand out. Arsenal at West Ham, fine, but you're saying maybe doubts about Saka, Newcastle at Palace if you've got
Chelsea,
Isak,
Villa at home.
Chelsea Villa. Yeah, I'm sure you could captain Cole Palmer, of course. Like I'm just saying, and I might captain Salah against City. I'm just saying, I think if João Pedro does have a good weekend, there might be a surge towards doing that next
I
week.
can't lie, I feel like you planted a seed in my head there. Even I'm like, oh, I quite like the look of that, and hadn't really thought of it. But I don't own him right now.
I think that surge might even be there just if he starts this weekend.
Yep.
Okay. Good luck if you're on Wildcard this week. You know what the key message is, don't you, Clayton?
Play it your way.
That's correct. Talk to me about the only football team in the world that's got a slash in their name.
Are they actually?
Oh,
Bodo
I
Glimt. Yeah.
don't
Oh,
know.
okay. Yeah, I take things very literally if you couldn't tell.
We know.
Yeah, Bodo Glimt. They're so there's a big community, specifically on FPL Twitter. I don't know if it's migrated to Blue Sky, but the elite Syrian players. I don't know why, but there's like a very strong community of fantasy football players that played the Norwegian fantasy game. I think there were a few in our Slack community a couple of years ago as well. So Bodo Glimt are a team that I've kind of heard of before. Arsenal actually played them in the Europa League 2 seasons ago. I think we beat them 1-0 and 3-0. But yeah, they are a very interesting team. I think if I happened to ever go and move to Norway, I would adopt them as my team. They sound like a very exciting team. They're one of the most innovative clubs in Scandinavian football, is the vibe I'm getting. They give me very similar vibes to like Brentford and how they kind of operate. Very smart, very strategic, like similar to Brighton, Brentford. They were founded in 1916. They've got a very bright yellow kit, and apparently it's to symbolize the midnight sun. They're from northern Norway, and traditionally in Norwegian football,
I was going to say the midnight sun, what that they never see.
well,
But I
that's
suppose they
what,
do see a midnight sun in the summer, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Norway is apparently like one of the happiest places to live. That's a random tangent, anyway.
And they're all good at fantasy.
Yeah, they are. But yeah, apparently, traditionally in Norway, there's not many teams that have done well from the northern region. So I think that's where Bodo Glimt have been a bit of a unique case study in that case. So yeah, they were founded in 1916. Their biggest kind of breakthrough was in 1975 when they won their first cup, which was the Norwegian Cup. And they won it again in 1993. In terms of Europe, yeah, I think they announced themselves very interestingly. So, what year was it? They made their first appearance, 2021. They actually made their first Champions League appearance. They got knocked out against Legia Warsaw, the Polish
Legia
team.
Warszawa for our Polish listeners. There you go.
All right. Yeah, well done. That was very
Dolce
impressive.
Dziękuję.
Have you
No,
been
I
to
didn't
Poland by
do
any chance?
Polish at school,
Oh,
but there
okay.
was a very attractive Polish girl. Keep going.
So yeah, 2021 they made their first appearance in that competition and they got knocked out. So they then went into the Conference League and they had a very interesting campaign there. I think a lot of people will remember they absolutely battered Roma 6-1 in one of the games.
Hold on. I'll tell the full story.
Okay, go on.
Jose Mourinho's Roma. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you had to get that in there. So yeah, they beat Roma 6-1 in their debut competition, in the debut campaign, sorry, in the Conference League. They then eventually did get knocked out by Roma. So
You don't need to tell the full story on that bit. It's boring. You don't need to tell me that they won that competition either. Keep going.
yeah, well, but to be fair, so even that, like the first leg, Bodo actually went 2-1 up. And then in the second game, it was 4-0. They got absolutely twatted. And I think it was Zaniolo that got a hat trick in that game. For the Villa listeners that might be wondering what the hell happened to him.
I saw him
Uh,
score for someone at the weekend.
I think he's at Atalanta.
I think it
No,
might be. Yes. No, I saw him. He scored at Stuttgart the other week in the Champions League. Yeah. Carry on.
for Atalanta.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting. But yeah, they've won the Elite Syrian, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Elite Syrian Championship 3 times. They won it in 2020, 2021, and they actually won it last year, 2023. This season, they're having, well, it's not a mixed campaign. They're second. They are behind, let me find it. The
2 points
team,
behind. 2 games to go.
that's it. Yeah, 2 points behind Bran. So that's it. I'm going to keep an eye on that actually, because yeah, doing the research for this, I was interested in it. So the difference between them and Bran is literally they've drawn one more game than Bran. They've both lost four. But Bodo Glimt have scored the most goals and conceded the least in that league. So yeah, like I said, they're known for being one of the most exciting and innovative teams. I can't confess to remember seeing that style against Arsenal, but everything from the kind of data to how people describe them sounds like a very fun, aggressive team. And I think a large influence of that came from the manager Kjetil Knutsen, who came in. I don't know if he's the
I just
current.
want you to say it again.
Okay, it's spelled
This guy could well
KJ.
end up in the Premier League, so get it right.
All right.
On your
Yetel.
Kjetil Knutsen, yeah.
See, I don't know if the K is silent.
I don't know either.
I'm gonna guess
But
it is.
the,
Yeah,
the, the trick is, Clayton, make it sound like you know. People
yeah,
won't
no.
ask questions.
All right, Yetel Knutsen. So he came in I think 2018, and that's where they kind of really formed this kind of very unique identity on that kind of fast-paced, very innovative style of football. And yeah, they sound like a really fun team. Like again, when they played Arsenal, I can't confess to remember this kind of amazing style because Arsenal did beat them fairly comfortably in both games. But yeah, I kind of want to start watching them. So yeah, fun team.
The manager has been linked with several jobs over here. I think Leeds are one that had a real good look at him. They had a really dominating two-leg victory against Celtic in Europe a couple of years ago, and I think both Celtic and Rangers have considered him as potentially an option for them as well. So we're not just talking about jobs here in the UK. We're talking about three big football clubs in Leeds, Celtic, and Rangers are potentially looking at this fella. So I would imagine there's an inevitability at some stage that he will take a job in a higher profile league with respect to Norway. You say that you'd go over there and support them, Kate. So I think you take your gloves, mate, would be the advice.
Ha, yeah,
Because if you think it's cold here at the moment,
yeah, it's mad though.
you know how long it take you to drive from Oslo to Glint?
No idea. I'm gonna guess a very long time.
16 hours.
Jesus Christ.
The coldest thing you will do today is not look outside your window wherever you are. It's actually just looking at a map to see how much further north Bodo Glimt is than the tip of Scotland. That alone, I promise you, will bring a shudder to you.
Yeah, maybe I'm not gonna look to relocate there.
Historically, as you'd said, they were kind of considered not them specifically, but teams from North Norway because it's so far north to say the Oslo region and stuff like that. Were considered kind of like they've kind of discriminated against. Like you're not good enough to play top level football. They had a different promotion system for the teams in the north than the rest of the country. The teams they basically had a three divisions would then promote into the top tier. And it's only changed in like the 1970s. And the two from the more southern leagues would get automatic promotion. If you won the Northern League, you had to have a playoff with the other two teams who finished second in the two southern leagues, and it was only if like you have a three team competition. If you then won that, you got promoted. So they were getting discriminated against where they weren't getting promoted. The other team you might be familiar with who plays really north in Norway is Tromso,
Yeah, heard of them. Yeah.
who some of the listeners more around my age and certainly Chelsea fans will remember Chelsea playing, I think, a Cup Winners' Cup quarter final, I want to say, in the late 90s on a game that just would not happen now. I mean, it's on snow. It's not
Yeah.
on a snow covered
Get the
pitch.
orange ball out.
It's on, yeah, it's one of them. It's on snow. One of the handicaps for the Scandinavian teams going forward is kind of just highlighted. They've got two league games to go. Now, then they don't restart till sort of like the spring. But obviously, you've got these European games coming up now, and you've got two in January as well. So the two in January are really awkward for the majority of the Scandinavian clubs who are competing because they haven't got any club football. So that's not ordinarily when they'd be doing their pre-season and stuff like that. So a little
Yeah.
bit awkward. If you want to watch Bodo Glimt, Clayton, you can next Thursday because
Yeah,
they are
Man
the
United.
the first visitors to Ruben Amorim's Manchester United. That's part why we cover them now. On the slash in their name, Clates, do you know how that comes about?
I don't know.
So it was originally a hyphen. So Bodo and Glimt are kind of like two different regions of where they are. Not a merger as such, but it was originally a hyphen between the two. And they changed it to a slash because it was believed that the hyphen is obviously where is it used in football is to separate scores.
Okay.
2-2
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like a 2-2, right? So some people were reading it as like, right, so Bodo played Glimt and what was the score? No, that's the team. So to separate that for people who didn't know who they were, they decided to use a slash.
Ah, interesting.
So it's a very, very unusual one that it's Bodo slash Glimt essentially.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good game. I think, yeah, obviously from the Man United perspective, new manager, intrigued to see how they set up. But Bodo just sound like a very exciting team. And in
I
that,
won't be watching it.
you will be, no, I was going to say you'll be in Glasgow Rangers. You won't. That's
No,
next
I
month.
won't. I will be at White Hart Lane next Thursday at what I can tell you will be a probably a half full White Hart Lane.
Who have you got?
We're playing Roma.
Why is it going to be half full? Ticket prices.
Because they have taken the piss for the ticket pricing,
Yeah,
yeah.
immediate thought
And
was
they are
categorization.
getting the message. Hey, James, if you don't like it, don't pay. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you about everybody else. I've paid. I'll be there.
So is yours not included in your season ticket? You have to pay.
No,
Uh,
no, 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 no.
sure.
I
Just
won't even say what my ticket price is
yeah,
next week
no,
because people would go, James, please stay in the warm for your mental health.
fair
That's
play.
fine.
But no, I'm looking forward to watching that game. It's obviously halfway point in the European competition. So Bodo are 12th, Man United are 15th. 1 point separates them, so could be quite a swingy
They've
outcome
won one, drawn two, I think. Are they unbeaten so far, I think, in Europe
in Europe.
this year?
Who Bodo or Man United? Bodo have won
Bodo.
two,
I'm not
but
bothered about Man United, mate.
no. So Bodo have won two of their games. They've drawn one and lost one.
Okay, great. So
Seven
that's
points.
impressive in contention. Yeah, I would suggest a dangerous opponent, potentially.
If it was at Bodo, yeah, I reckon they could do something. Their stadium. Sorry, I know I'm waffling a little bit, but
8,000 is all it asks.
yeah, but because I remember when Arsenal got him, I was like, oh, that'd be great. I've never been to Norway. Fucking no chance of a ticket. I think there was like
No, no, no.
a couple of hundred that went, but I believe their ground, I believe their pitch is like one of those kind of AstroTurf
Yeah.
type ones.
They will
So
because of the weather and stuff, isn't it?
yeah,
So where they are in winter, how many hours of daylight do they get?
I'm
I
not
should have
sure.
researched this, but
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't
many,
know
is
that.
it?
No.
It
But
is
yeah,
if you
cool team.
I did look at the weather report there all week. It is minus all week.
Oh, really?
At no point does it raise above freezing. It's worth saying the weather does, as it will do here, does get better once we get towards the weekend. But yeah, it's cold there, mate. Let's finish with on this day.
Hit me. What year are we going to this year? Today even.
2010. I promised you a comeback in the London Derby. What I didn't tell you, Clayton, was you had your fun last week, and now I'm going to have mine. On this day from 2010 is a North London derby at the Emirates, Tottenham's first victory at Arsenal in 17 years, or to give you a different statistic, the only one there in the last 30 years. In the league, anyway, because we do have a League Cup quarter-final victory to our name at the Emirates as well. To line this up for you, Tottenham off the back of games with Inter Milan. I would say in a good mental space. Gareth Bale has kind of announced himself to the world, but showing inconsistencies in the Premier League. A la after that 3-1 victory against Inter at White Hart Lane, we got our asses handed to us at Bolton on the Saturday afterwards. That's kind of how we were at that time. Some very good offensive players. Defensively, questionable. And there were certain similarities I think you could pose towards that Arsenal team at the time. Arsenal went into this North London derby able to go top if they won, albeit because it was the early kickoff on that particular day. Much of the discussion ahead of the game was around William Gallas.
Oh, was this around the Birmingham incident time?
No, it's William Gallas playing for us
Oh, okay.
because he'd left you on a free transfer and joined us.
Oh
Um,
shit. Yeah, yeah.
wasn't quite like the he who shall not be named scenario because I think Arsenal had released him
Yeah, I actually forgot he
um,
went straight to you
rather than
after.
Tottenham stealing him, if you will. Um, but in any case, Gallus had done the full tour, isn't it? Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. How to
Yep.
make yourself disliked? Yeah, okay. It was the problem was he just wasn't quite shit enough to play for West Ham, unfortunately. But he did the Chelsea Arsenal tour, which I'm sure Chelsea fans would point out. Yeah, you can tell his career was on a downward spiral anyway. So Tottenham picked him up, and Tottenham had issues defensively. No Ledley King, no Michael Dawson. So Redknapp gave Gallus the captaincy just for the crack as well. Sammy Nasri refused to shake his hand. They'd had a bust up over something. This wasn't quite to the Wayne Bridge, John Terry profile of non-handshakes. I think it's one that's largely forgotten. But yes, they did not ignore each other. And Sammy Nasri would give you the lead, Clates. 9 minutes into the game. Ball over the top from Fabregas with his usual overhit, underweighted, because the quality of his distribution was so poor. What a player he was when he was
Yeah,
at
so
it.
good.
He was probably around his peak at this time, and so was Nasri. He was having a
He
fantastic
was a
season.
brilliant player as well, Nasri.
This was the season we really started scoring a lot of goals early on. I'm sure for those who did play fantasy then, it was probably in most people's teams, I should imagine. Ball goes over the top from Fabregas. Asuakotu's on the track. Nasri's going through. Gomez comes out to smother him. Gomez gets two hands on the ball, but Nasri basically runs through him. It's not a foul in any way. Just Gomez isn't strong enough in the moment. And the ball's going at an angle sort of wide towards the goal. Gomez laying on his floor. And Nasri can't really score because at the angle he's running at, do you remember a goal he scored against Fulham? Probably the same season where he got to the
Yeah,
goalkeeper
yeah.
and he
And then
did like
the
this.
angles.
He rolled the ball off the sole of his foot and he went and he actually ran around the ball to then put it back in at
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
angle.
remember that one. I think I was at that game.
So the angle with the finish was very similar at the other end of the ground. But he doesn't run around the ball. He just kind of prods it with his left foot towards the goal. You've got no angle whatsoever. It rolls towards the goal. And every time I watch it back, I still think, why doesn't Asirikotu get there? I think Asirikotu thinks if he's going to swing his leg, he's going to kick the post.
Oh,
And it
okay,
trick
so
was
he
in
bowled it.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But we know Benoit didn't really want to play football.
Yeah.
It was just a job, wasn't it? So there you go, 1-0 down. Yeah, the usual. And you're dominating,
Were
right?
you at this game, by the way?
No,
No.
I was. I'll tell you in a second. Um, so about 15, 20 minutes later, it's 2-0. You have a breakaway. Fabregas out to Arshavin on the left hand side, who's there with his gloves, running at Alan Hutton, who's been injured in the build up, but gets himself back on. Alan Hutton, who obviously does not fear the cold, is wearing short sleeves. Arshavin with his gloves on, dressed like it really is -degrees, like he's playing in Norway, puts in this brilliant little cross. And Marwan Shamak gets on the end of it in front of Yunus Kabul to score. Shamak, who he's also wearing gloves, also wearing a snood, who he's lucky he wasn't playing against Christian Romero because Romero probably would have strangled the thing around his neck at the time.
Nasri used to
Um,
like a snood as well.
but this wasn't. No, this was one of them. It was just like I don't know what you'd. I don't know if snood's even the right word
It
because
is,
a
yeah,
few of
it's a
them used to
snood.
wear like these hoodies, right? This was just something that just went around your neck.
Yeah. I think it is
Like
a
if a
snood.
player had pulled it,
I mean, they'd get that would be a foul, no? It's like the same thing as
well,
pulling a shirt.
yeah, but he does look odd. No wonder they got outlawed. When you look back on it now, you think that looks so odd. Also looks a
Very,
bit
very practical to
dangerous
keep
if
warm though.
someone pulled it.
But if someone pulled it, dangerous. Yeah. As you're describing this game, I was at this game, because I think I know who. I think I know who scored your the winning goal.
You're going to ruin the story. I mean, if you
No,
want,
no, I'm
I'll
not gonna
just sit
no,
back
no, I'm not gonna
and
ruin it. But just
you
like, I
and you
think I was at this game as you're describing it.
you can tell the end of the story. So I'll tell you where I was, and this is what I remember most about where I was. I watched a game in a pub that I'd never been in before and have never been in back since. Not because it was that bad, just we decided to try something different. Because where I used to go, the pub used to split in half. It used to be half Arsenal and half Tottenham.
Fuck
And
that.
yeah, but generally it was all right. But actually, it was all right when we were shit. When we started getting better, because the two teams were near an equal footing at this point. The previous year, we'd obviously finished fourth. I think you'd finished third. But obviously, for the previous sort of 15 years, you'd completely dominated. It was obviously beginning to level up the gap, even though you could have gone top on this day. Both teams' aspiration would have been to be towards the top of the table. And at that point, the mood started changing around. Like it suddenly became more important. So we decided to go down Hertford Road, not really near Tottenham, going towards Waltham Cross, actually. And obviously, pubs full of Tottenham. I remember at half time going outside 2-0 down, and you've been the better side. You deserve to be winning 2-0, no question. And this geezer going and putting a fiver on Tottenham to win at half time,
What odds to get?
coming back with his betting slip at 50-1. And
Wow.
I'm just laughing at him, saying, mate, if you wanted to waste the fiver, you could have bought me a drink. Like, and I'm sure the pint wasn't five
I
quid
was
back
gonna
then. It was
say
probably more like two pound
probably
50
two
or three
pound back
quid
then.
probably
Yeah.
back then. Yeah, like double now. Um, I never saw that fella at full time.
I
I
bet you
don't know
did.
if
He was running to
he
the
just
flipping
ran to
bookies,
the
wasn't
bookies
he?
to get his 255 quid. I have no idea. So second half starts. Harry Redknapp brings on Jermaine Defoe. So what do you do when you're playing all these offensive players? You just bring another one on. He brought Jermaine Defoe on to play with Pavlyuchenko. I think he took Crouch off, but Van der Vaart played. Lennon didn't start. Bale played. The midfield two was Genius and Modric. So, I mean, Genius was a good box to box runner, but he was more offensive than defensive. And Modric then was more offensive than defensive as well, right? It was a pretty offensive line, no bottle job, but then it was always liable to have bad away days. It reminds me of a certain Tottenham that I watch now as well, although very different in terms of style. And the oddest thing happens right towards the start of the second half. Defoe comes on. What does Benoit decide? I'm going to launch one up front towards Jermaine Defoe. But he wins it in the air. I can't remember who was challenging. It might have been Scalacci played. And I
Uh,
don't mean Toto Schillaci for those who think
Sebastian.
Italian Golden Boot winner. Yeah, he played centre back with Koscielny. I can't remember which one Defoe beat in the air, but it's like Defoe shouldn't have been winning the header. Defoe
That sounds
hated
about
heading the
right with
ball. He was a little
Scalacci.
lad.
He was fucking pony for us.
Flick the header on, and Van der Vaart gets on the outside, and he lets it come to him, chests it, and just kind of rolls it down, just flicks it in front of him, and bails on the burst down the right hand side, and he's slightly behind him, and he just carries it with the outside of his foot in front of him, and then slots it in the corner with the outside of his foot as well. All right, game on, but still think no, probably going to get beat here. And then we equalised not long after with one of the most bizarre concessions of a penalty you'll ever see. I watched it back this morning, and I remember there being some debate about at the time about whether it should have been a penalty or not, and it must have
Looking
been.
back, was it a no-brainer to you?
Oh, it's 100%, mate.
All
We
right.
have a free kick on the edge of the box, which Van der Vaart takes. Is to the kind of left angle, and Fabregas and Shamak are the two closest in the wall. Fabregas ends up handballing it. Before Van der Vaart even takes the kick, Fabregas puts his arm kind of a right angle across his face before he even kicks it. And then Van der Vaart takes the kick and he's obviously trying to fly it over the wall. And Fabregas stretches his arm even more.
What the hell?
It's a really weird. It's like it's 100% penalty.
What? And there was debate around that.
Yeah, I remember not from media, just people like, oh, I don't know if it was like, oh, should it be a penalty for that? Like it's too harsh because it's right near the edge of the box, but it's in the box and stuff. Idiot.
Sounds like a
It's a
great
clear
save.
penalty. Van der Vaart puts Flappy on his backside, slots in the penalty, gives the old shush to the clock end. Do you still call it the clock end, or is it
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
the Ashburton Army end now?
No, it's
What are the cool kids calling it these
yeah,
days?
it's still the clock
Clock
end
end.
and North Bank.
So now obviously we've pissed you off, haven't we? And you're still the better side for all of this, by the way. We're obviously having more opportunities. We're not just getting twatted now, but you still think Arsenal are going to win. I remember this Laurent Koscielny missed a header. I missed it.
I
And
can't
Van
remember
Persie
that.
hadn't started, came on, but this brilliant crossing from the right hand side. And Koscielny at the back post gets up. He gets up so well, he's able to kind of arch and really power his head up. He heads it over. That was with about 15 minutes to go. And then we won it with 5 minutes to go. Bale won a free kick on the right hand side. Um, slung Van der Vaart got put his crossings from really deep, just in front of the dugout. It's where it's taken from, and Eunice Kabul just kind of helps it on its way. It takes a slight nick off Van Persie as well, and
It's like
beats
a slow
Fabianski and
motion,
scores.
that
It,
one.
it is one of yeah. I remember when it happened. Obviously, limbs all around. You can imagine. But something didn't feel right about the goal, and I remember thinking at the time he was like not right. I mean, it was like an out of body experience because I'd not like in my adulthood obviously seen Tottenham beat Arsenal away. And this was only, obviously, I'd said to you last week, we went on a 10-year period where we hadn't beat you. The game before in April at White Hart Lane was the first time.
Yeah.
So we'd gone from not beating you for 10 years to then beat you away from home for the first time in 17 years. So, yeah, it was a weird one.
It's a
Absolutely rollied that
yeah,
day,
I
as you
can
can
imagine.
imagine. My current wife, I remember calling her about 11 o'clock, like, come meet up, babe.
You did the you up. You
I
dirty
said,
dog.
no, I dragged her out, but I've
All
been
right.
in the pub from like before 12 o'clock. It's 11 hours later, still going. Couldn't do that now, mate.
It's such an interest. Like, as you know, my memory is awful, but I remember that goal. Like, I don't remember the game. Like, as you were describing it, there's flashes in my head, but that goal, I remember it crystal clear. Like, I can picture it
The Kabul
slow.
goal.
Yeah, the Kabul goal, sorry. Like, I can picture it slowly heading towards the net. Like, I can't remember where I was sat or anything, but I've got such a crystal clear memory of that goal in my head for some reason.
That game changed, I think, for some people, a real kind of seismic change mentally to, all right, for Arsenal fans, right, we've waited this time while you've built the stadium. We're going to be this, that, and the other. When you look back on the Arsenal team that day, and it's worth saying Van Persie and Walcott were subs. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was behind that, but they were subs. Might have been after an international break, maybe. I'm not sure. Um, but some of the players you had weren't good enough, mate.
Mate, that, like, I'm,
Like people like Scalacci and stuff.
yeah, like that. How Arsene Wenger managed to consistently get top four with some of the teams he had to put
Shamak up
out.
front.
Yeah, like some of them were awful. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a conversation for another day on Arsene Wenger and Arsenal and stuff. But like, yeah, I don't know how he got top four consistently with some of the teams he had. Some of them were awful.
Yeah, I think that was obviously a bad day for you to be 2-0 up against us. I know. I think there was even at that point still there was very much of a yeah, but you'll always shit and we'll always beat you when it happens. So that
Yeah.
was one to from 2-0 down as well caused real outrage for a lot of Arsenal fans. The teams that day for the record, just to read them out: Fabianski, Sanya, Koscielny, Schillaci, Clichy, Fabregas, Nasri, Denilson, Alex Song, Arshavin, Shamak,
So to be fair,
Cedric.
other than Shamak and Squillaci, I think that side's all right.
On the bench, you had Chesney, was probably smoking at that point. Juru, Ebui, Rosicki, Walcott, Wilshere, and Van Persie. Tottenham was Gomez, Hutton, Cabal. Gallus was given man of the match, by the way. Asirikotu. Lennon. So it was Lennon he took off for Defoe. Crouch came on towards the end. Lennon, Genus, Modric, Van der Vaart, Bale, and Pavlyuchenko. Defoe and Crouch came on. Defoe came on for Lennon at half time. So you'd have moved Van der Vaart from 10 to go and play right midfield. And Crouch came on for Pavlyuchenko with 20 to go. We had some good attacking players, not so good the other end. But yeah, Gallus and Cabal held up quite well that day. Because our first choice back four would have been Chorluka over Hutton at the time. And then obviously Dawson and Deadly King, probably
Yeah.
as the centre backs. Pretty sure Jonathan Woodgate might have even still been with the club as well.
I remember
So we
around that
had
time.
bodies, but half of them were crippled most of the time.
I think I was obviously in school in that time, and I forgot what year I was in, but I remember so many debates, like because there was so many Tottenham, so many Arsenal in my year. All the debates were like, who's better, Koscielny or Cabal around that period of time.
I can tell you it was Laurent Koscielny, without any doubt. I don't know if he's one we look back on and think, was he? He wouldn't oust Saliba or Gabriel now. No way.
No chance, but he
But I
was
think
very
for a
underrated, I think.
long period, he was very much considered Arsenal's best defender.
Yeah, he was really, really good, I think. I think he was quite underrated outside of Arsenal
But
circles.
was it more because he played with a lot of shit around him?
Possibly, but him and Mertesacker had a period where, like, together as a duo, they were really balanced. Like, they really complemented each other nicely. Like, their strengths negated the other's weaknesses and stuff. And yeah, possibly around the other shit around him. But yeah, I think he was just a very good defender for a period of
It,
time for us.
here you go. Here's a question for him to finish. Would Tottenham be better now if they had peak Per Mertesacker playing for them?
No, not in the system you play. No chance.
We might defend crosses though.
Uh, no, not a chance. He would not survive in your
Possibly get
system.
crippled on the halfway line. Yeah.
Fucking hell, in your system, that would, yeah. He needed a very, like, he was a good defender, needed a very specific system around him. Not in the way Tottenham play, absolutely not.
No, I'm glad you said that. All right, cheers. That's the end of the Clayton and James show. Thank you, Clayton. Tomorrow, as I said, Clash of Correspondents is Newcastle West Ham with Simon Bibby and Chris Stone. You can still catch up with obviously Monday's show, Southampton Liverpool with Matt Samuel and Dan Lord, and obviously yesterday's People's Power. If you want to have a listen back as well, me and Suj discuss rotation in December and how much we should fear it. I'll also be doing my Ask James stream on Friday. It's scheduled for 2 p.m. UK time, which sees me say thanks very much, Clayton. Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.